Lads, after UFC 323 on the weekend, what did we just witness? Two of the sickest one-round wars in UFC history. Pure chaos and violence and absolute cinema for a single round of fighting. Of course, I'm talking about Iwo versus Ebo and McKinney versus Duncan. We'll talk a little bit about those fights a bit later. But they got me thinking, those two fights, how do we actually measure this stuff? Not just like, oh, that fight was hectic and it was over real fast, but I wanted to get like a proper system for ranking these sick one-round wars. So because I am a cooked individual, but I'm also a scholar of the UFC, I built such a system. First, we've got the VDI. The VDI is the Violence Density Index. This is the scientific part of this ranking system. It is significant strikes divided by seconds of the fight. Pretty simple. Basically just means how much damage per second are these psychos outputting and dealing out to each other. Makes sense, right? But that wasn't really enough because one-round wars aren't just about significant strikes. So we added in the CBF Factor, which is the chaos bias factor. This captures all of the intangibles. So we're talking takedowns, knockdowns, submission attempts, crazy moments, missed bombs, swings in momentum, comebacks, all of that stuff that we love at Punch-Ons, but the numbers don't really show that well. And yes, CBF also stands for couldn't be fucked because I'm absolutely biased and I couldn't be fucked thinking of a more legit way of ranking this. So the CBF factor is also added on based off basically a completely arbitrary decision that I make, and it's a score out of 10. Then finally, I multiplied everything together, smushed it all into a blender, and created the BDI, which is the Brain Damage Index. And that's the final number, the figure that we use to rank these fights from 10 to 1. So, after all that smushing together and after that completely legit, highly scientific mathematics, we get this legit Punch-Ons damage ranking for one-round wars. And with that in mind, we built the definitive list, including those two absolute classics that we just saw at UFC 323. So this is going to be the absolute best, most hectic, insane one-round wars in UFC history. Strap in for the carnage, boys. Let's punch on. Coming in at number 10, getting the ball rolling on the list, it is Czech Congo versus Pat Barry, a very famous one-round war. And look, some of you guys are probably going to be surprised to see it this far down the list, but hear me out. It's all mathematical. It's all proven by science and Punch-On's logic. Look, I think the reason why this one doesn't quite get its way up the list that high is because in terms of the density of the violence, a lot of the mayhem all happened within like a 30-second period. And outside of that, the fight was a little bit tame. There was a lot of kind of staring at each other and feinting and leg kicking. So the fight starts, these two big units start sizing each other up. A couple of leg kicks and then a whole bunch of pretty much nothing for the first couple of minutes. Pat Barry tries a takedown, doesn't get it. That would be a smart way to fight Czech Congo, is try and wrestle him, but doesn't work. So they go back to standing at range and feinting at each other. And then after a couple of minutes of pretty much nothing and a dead fight, Pat Barry lands the weirdest looking haymaker overhand that just clips Czech Congo in the weirdest way. It looks like it hit him with the forearm, but maybe his knuckle clipped his temple or something. And it looks like he sleeps Czech Congo, and down he goes, timber, and Pat Barry jumps on him and swarms, and he lands some bloody good shots, and it looks like Czech Congo is basically unconscious. Somehow he wrestles up onto a single leg and stays in it, and then he gets back up, and then immediately Pat Barry just chins him again, completely flatlines him, ragdolls him, down he goes. Looks like Congo is in La La Land, but again, the tough prick somehow stays in it, wrestles his way back up again, and Matrix dodges a whole bunch of the shots. Pat Barry must be thinking, what the fuck do I have to do to kill this bloody unit? Anyways, next minute, Czech Congo just zombie modes and then lands a big overhand and then an uppercut that just sleeps Pat Barry and into La La Land, and he's dreaming about little baby roast Nabi Yunus. Down goes Pat Barry, he like collapses over his shoulder, stacks it like Masvidal did onto Usman when he knocked him out, and he's flatlined. And look, the ref, interesting decision making in this fight because he definitely could have stopped it when Czech Congo was out, but he had to stop it when Pat Barry was out because he was legitimately flatlined. Congo pounces on him and just starts like dropping bombs, and you can see the bloody look of fear in the ref's face. because he's just like, holy shit, this guy's about to die. And luckily he jumps in there and that's the end of the fight. And somehow Chet Congo gets up looking like nothing even happened. He just walks up, he's like, yep, I'm the man. Not a mark on his face. No evidence or sign that he's just been chinned like 3 times in a row. So, yeah, that was a wild 30 seconds of a fight. But outside of that, it doesn't really do much for me. So, look, a 159-second fight, 18 significant strikes, that's pretty low as well. 3 knockdowns, that's insane. That bumps it up on the CBF Factor for sure. And we end up with a BDI of 0.906, which is the lowest on this list. And to be honest with you, if I had to pick some other one-round fights that maybe you guys can hit me up with in the comments, there's probably fights that would have pushed this out of the top 10. But you can't have a top 10 one-round wars list without Chet Congo versus Pat Barry. Insane all-time one-round war. All right, and on to number 9. It is Donald Cowboy Cerrone versus Melvin Gillard. This was another short fight, but this one was action-packed as well. This one's definitely high up there on the violence density rating for sure. So this is kind of early Cowboy days. He's fighting Melvin Gillard. He looks a bit like Balaji Oki, this dude. They start off in the feet, and it does not take him long to get into it. Cowboy's looking threatening. He lands a pretty decent head kick to start things off. He goes for a big wing and left hook, and Gillard just steps back and tags him with a straight shot on the chin that sits Cerrone down and just almost sleeps him, like rocks him on the floor. But credit to Cerrone, he gets straight back up and starts hustling and running away. But man, Melvin Gillard goes at him. He pounces and chases him down up against the cage, throws a flying knee that lands somewhere flush, looks pretty good, and then just goes on him and just attacks, and knees and elbows and big shots, just chasing him down, uppercuts, elbows, lands a couple of filthy elbows over the top that, oh man, it would have slept many, many men. And then Cerrone, the mad dog, just finds his distance again, and he's like, all right, you want to fucking go, mate? All right, like, let's do it. We doing this, are we? All right, I guess we're here to fight. Anyways, just puts like an angry look on his face, starts hunting Gillard down. Then Donald Cerrone just lands a crazy head kick that just skims the top of his head, but must have clipped him on the temple with his shin, just in that sweet spot, that lights out spot, like the one that bloody Gaethje did on Poirier. And he kind of like delayed reaction, wobbles for a second, sort of looks at the ground, does the chicken dance, and then Cerrone just follows up with the perfect right hook that sits him down bad, KOs him clean, super necessary follow-up shots. The ref jumps in, and bro, Cerrone just walks off looking like nothing actually happened at all. He's just like calm as anything, like, yeah, that just happened, walks off, no hands in the air, no smile, no nothing, puts his cowboy hat on, gets his cash and does the fucking dash like JDM would say. So crazy fight, that one. Only went for 76 seconds, 14 significant strikes. I reckon it's probably more than that. That's all they wrote down, because Gillard landed most of the significant strikes, but Cerrone just landed that flush head kick. So 2 knockdowns bumps it up a bit on the CBF Factor and up to a 7. The violence density index is only at a 0.184, which is why it's so far down the list, and it gets a total brain damage index of 1.288, rocking at number 9. At number 8, we got Robert Whittaker versus Derek Brunson. This was an insane fight. This was a crazy war. Brunson fought like this motherfucker owed him money, eh? He was fighting for his paycheck, eh? Because he went full skits mode against Robert Whittaker, and Whittaker just almost like got put away, but managed to stay so calm and composed in the face of an absolute storm. And Brunson gassed himself out like a mad dog and then just got tuned up and finished. So it was a sick fight, but like Brunson just came in with full-blown crackhead energy and just attacked the takedown immediately. Whittaker tags him with an uppercut in there, but sort of that was the only shot Whittaker landed early. He landed a couple of jabs, like he was looking all right, but Brunson just started pouring it on him. Landed a couple of good shots, not a lot of what Brunson landed at first, but he was doing enough and throwing so wild and just running into the fire that Whittaker had to be on the back foot. He had no other choice. He was mixing in takedowns. He was getting the clinch. He threw a punch to the dick at one point that I reckon landed, then an uppercut to the head. So Bobby Knuckles copped that, managed to move his way out of the clinch. Brunson's just throwing everything at him, absolutely no technique at all, just throwing crazy wild shots, chasing after him, like throwing Superman punches while he was running, and a few of them clipped Bobby, that's for sure, but he stayed in there. like turtled up and used a good guard, but some of the shots definitely snuck through for Brunson. Like these photos don't really do it justice, but he was clipping Bobby for sure up against the cage, but nothing like fight ending, obviously. But he just kept going and going and going and going. Landed some like good straight shots, just kept throwing uppercuts to the body, pouring it on Bobby Knuckles, who just kept dodging and ducking and weaving and zigging and zagging. Brunson goes for another takedown. Knuckles sprawls it. They clinch up for a bit. There's a little bit of time in the clinch there where Brunson's kind of just getting his breath back for his second wind, but that was all he had. And then he landed a couple of knees to the thigh and stuff. Picks up Robert Whittaker and dumps him down. The crowd goes crazy off that, but then Bobby Knuckles just slips straight out and gets back up to his feet. Then he just starts entering his flow state, man. The Bobby Knuckles we all know and love just starts throwing the jab, bro, peppering him with the jab, head kicks, 1-2s. Brunson starts running in like a crackhead again and then just gets fucking tagged with a sweet left hook. Like as he's got his head forward like this, Knuckles just clips him with the knuckles. Down he goes, wobbles him bad. The crowd starts going crazy. This was in Australia, I'm pretty sure, in Melbourne. And then Bobby Knuckles just takes over, bro. He smells blood, just starts pouring it on. Uppercut, feeds him. Uppercut him Mungo, yeah, knocks him fucking silly, then throws a few more jabs, then the head kick, bro. Just a Bobby Knuckles 1-2 punch head kick combo, clips Brunson on the jaw, and that fucks him. That was the end of him, mate. And then he just turtled up. Bobby just started throwing uppercuts, tagging him up. Down he goes, pours it on, TKO up against the cage, and the ref's got no choice. And Bobby Knuckles gets a sick big moment in Melbourne there. That was a fucking wild fight. That all was all over in the course of like 3 minutes or something. We are at 247 seconds. So what's that? 4 minutes. 52 significant strikes. Probably most of them landed by Brunson too, but Bobby started getting a few back at the end. 1 knockdown, 1 takedown, and just a whole lot of violence, bro. That was 0.210 on the VDI. CBF of 7, we end up with a BDI of 1.470 and a very deserving, entertaining fight coming in at number 8. At number 7, a lot of people probably thought this one was going to be on the list here. It's Charles Oliveira versus Justin Gaethje. They fought for the vacant belt, I reckon, after Charles missed weight. This was an all-timer, boys, as well. Sick fight, this one. These boys, ultimate respect. They touched gloves at the start, but the whole crowd just knew this was about to be chaotic. I remember watching this live going, as if this is going to be a snooze fest. This is going to be a crazy fight. And it was. It did not let us down at all. Charles Oliveira in his prime, coming off winning the belt and then over Chandler, and I think he might have beat Poirier after that as well. Anyways, Gaethje throwing his patented leg kick, snapping him, bro. Landed a good one right to start, and then Charles just clips him with an overhand right and then gets him up into the clinch and just starts landing those disgusting knees to the body, teeping to the body as well, front kicks. Gaethje started wearing that as well. Then they both kind of clashed and threw at the same time and just missed. And then Gaethje pops an uppercut, I think it was, that sits Charlie down on his ass and into his guard. And Gaethje just had the plan of not engaging in the guard in this fight because he was just like, nah, man, up you get. And probably to his, to his detriment, because it gave Charles time to just settle and shake the cobwebs off every time that Gaethje rocked him, which was a few times. Anyway, he gets back up. Then Charles just gets back into his flow again. He looks so good on the feet, this one, Charles. Like, not defensively, but offensively, man, he mixed it up. Knees to the body there. Like a couple of good exchanges between both of them. Gaethje throws an overhand right that sits Charles down. You can see his eyes spinning his head again, sits him down again on his ass, and Charles just lays back there again and has another little rest, and up he gets. He was split at this point. There was blood pissing out of his eye. He was all busted up. He lands a couple of good shots of his own. Big flying knee as well that I'm not sure if it landed, but it looked pretty sick. Then Gaethje just keeps peppering the jab and tagging him. Gaethje was throwing with huge fight-ending intent, so he sort of gassed himself out a bit as well. Then Charles jumps on him and pulls guard, but Gaethje wasn't having a bar of it, man. He just kind of got back up and goes, nah, man, up we go, on the feet, stand and bang, good on Gaethje. That's why he got the BMF fight. Anyway, then he lands another big shot as well, overthrows at one point and kind of falls over and stacks it, and Charles lets him back up as well. Thought maybe Charles would have jumped on his back. Charles throws a front kick that smacks him upside the chin as well. Then Charles was all busted up, man, but he's still in there. And Gaethje, because he was overthrown so much, he just started slowing down a little bit. Then next minute, Charles just lands his textbook, signature vintage straight right. He throws with such clean, precise technique, Charles Oliveira. He's one of the sickest fighters to watch. Throws a straight right that just lands on Gaethje's chin and rocks him, drops him bad. Gaethje falls on the floor. He's seeing stars, and then Charles just with lightning speed just jumps on him, starts threatening the submissions. I think he got him onto a rear naked choke straight away, a bit of a face crank. Charlie was dropping 12 to 6 elbows, landing ground and pound shots. Gaethje kind of rolls over into a triangle, but he gets out and kind of gets free for a split second. And then Charles just too quick, too smooth, flows into another rear naked choke, hooks in straight under the neck, and just it's lights out from there. Gaethje does about 2 seconds worth of hand fighting, but he knows it's over. His face starts going bright red like a beetroot, and he taps before he goes to sleep. And Charles Oliveira, man, gets the belt. Crazy fight as well. You knew this one was going to be on there. 202 seconds, 51 significant strikes, evenly shared between both. Very impactful knockdowns, 2 knockdowns, 2 submission attempts, 1 successful. Pretty dense and stacked with violence, that fight. We got 0.252 in terms of the density. Probably been a little bit soft with the CBF factor there. Maybe I could have chucked it up to a 7 or an 8, but yeah, I gave it a 6 just because, I don't know, some of these other fights are even more crazy on here. Maybe a bit harsh, but end up with a BDI of 1.512, and it slits in here at number 7. Crazy fight. All right, boys, next up on the list at number 6 is a bit of a lesser-known underground one, bit of a low-key one that people forget, man. This is Julian the Cuban Missile Crisis Marquez versus Gregory Robocop Rodriguez. And this was when Robocop announced himself, bro. This was when we realised this guy is going to be a problem at middleweight. So these guys, they start off by standing at range for a bit, just feinting, feeling each other out a little bit. Then Marquez lands a pretty decent leg kick. Robocop, he gets his reads and checks the next kick that gets thrown. Then we get a clean 1-2 from Robocop, and then bang, a big 1-2 from Robocop, stumbles Marquez and throws him back against the cage, but he regains his composure. Then Robocop answers with another booming 1-2, a big straight combo that sits down Julian Marquez. Robocop just swarms him, starts unloading big ground and pound to the side of the head, whooping him up. Posts up on him, jumps on the back like a backpack. He's looking for the neck and throwing hammer fist from underneath as well. He's looking for that jiu-jitsu. Robocop eventually, though, gives it up. He abandons it. Marquez scrambles out of the clinch but eats a huge uppercut. They start trading again. Robocop just goes body. Marquez fires in a big overhand. Robocop just swarms him and starts piecing him up. This was filthy from Robocop. Knocks him down again with a big shot. Big flying knee from Robocop. Marquez starts throwing back and actually cops a couple of good ones. Then Robocop chins him again and drops him down. Follows up against the fence. Mad uppercuts. Marquez is covering up. Heavy elbows from Robocop as well. 2 massive elbows. Absolutely piecing him up to the head, to the body. Look, at this point, the fight probably should have been stopped. But Marquez, the tough prick, keeps going. He stumbles away. He's all over the shop, wobbling like jelly. Robocop whiffs a big head kick. Keeps marauding, enters Terminator mode, peak Robocop stage, and goes for a big knee up the middle that kind of lands. And then Marquez briefly rocks Robocop back and sort of sits him down, and we're thinking, oh shit, here we go. But Robocop immediately just gets back up and starts lighting him up again. A final big overhand sleeps Julian Marquez and sits him down after a ton of punishment, and Robocop gets it done with disgusting, filthy violence. Now, I gave this one a bit of a 5 on the CBF factor only because it was more of just an ass whooping than a true back and forth war, but it was still an insane 1-round spectacle. And Julian Marquez did have his moments and do some damage. So it was a 198-second fight, 62 significant strikes, probably about 50 of them from Robocop, 3 knockdowns, all from Robocop, gets a VDI of 0.313 and a CBF factor of 5, like I said, for a total combined brain damage index of 1.565. Gnarly fight. At number 5, we've got this crazy, intense, quick done war between Terrence McKinney and Drew the Iron Chin Dober. So these two fellas, they touch gloves and they feel each other out for a little bit at the start of the fight, like they always do. McKinney opens up with a huge flying knee instantly goes crazy on Drew Dober. Dober's already rocked and staggered into the cage. And then another big shot from McKinney inside the first 10 seconds. Tight left hook, right uppercut combo. Sits down Drew Dober bad after that big knee. Dober is in massive trouble. McKinney is just feeding him with uppercuts against the cage, holding his head like Islam held Volk's head when he was pumping him after the head kick. Disgusting stuff. Dober somehow gets his feet up into McKinney's hips and kicks him off, has his wits about him to do that. But McKinney stays on him, throwing wildly against the fence, tagging him, lands a big head kick. Dober resets just on his pure iron chin energy. Then McKinney goes for another flying knee, lands the same one on this Giga Chad's chin and sits him down again. But this time, Dober manages to hang on to a single leg and he wrestles up on it while he's just eating shots the whole time. Eventually, Dober clinches up and he gets a bit of recovery, but McKinney's knees are sore from smashing Dober's head at that point, so McKinney was happy for a break as well. Dober tries to pull guard and McKinney falls on top of him and he just starts dropping elbows, more ground and pound, big elbows. As they kind of get back up, there's a big head kick that lands from McKinney. He just starts winging massive haymakers, bro. Just disgusting shots. McKinney, as a 1 minute fighter, is barely anyone as good as him, eh? Lands a big step in left hook. Dober's wobbled again. He wrestles a bit more, fires back himself. Dober's busted up at this point. His lips all bleeding. There's a big shiner forming on his face. McKinney's flowing now. He tags him with another head kick. Dober eats it like breakfast. We get a good leg kick from Dober, whoa, big leg kick, mate. But he gets punished instantly with a jab from McKinney. Then McKinney goes for flying knee number 3, but this time Drew Dober's awake enough and he actually dodges it for once. McKinney spins out and then lands a spinning back fist that stumbles Dober yet again. He was just going crazy. What was Dober's chins made of that he hadn't been slept yet? Either that or McKinney's got pillow hands and pillow knees, but Dober lands a left hook that just buys him a second and kind of gets him off him. They wing at each other and just miss for a few moments. McKinney hits a takedown, 0 fight IQ, and Dober gets into guard. And look, this is the slowest part of the fight here. McKinney's still landing a bit of ground and pound, but Dober's just biding his time down there recovering. He's so happy to be down here. He's slapping the back of McKinney's head for a bit just for the lols. Anyway, eventually McKinney posts up and tries to get some big ground and pound, and Dober kicks off his hips again like he did before. McKinney lands a head kick, leaving the exchange, but slips and falls down on his ass. After that, there's a brief pause while Keith Peterson just jumps in and hands McKinney his mouth guard. So they reset again. These fellas, they toe the line. McKinney misses a big spinning heel kick a la Mauricio Hoofy. And as he goes for another big knee, just because, me McKinney, me knee, Dober cracks him with a left hook, and then he didn't like that, and they clinched up a bit. And now McKinney's busted up as well. His nose is bleeding, and he's starting to look rocked, he's starting to look gassed, in typical McKinney fashion. He lands another head kick, though, a massive flush head kick that wraps around the back of Dober's head, but Dober just manages to catch his foot on his shoulder. And then McKinney just tries another spinning back fist, but he's just cooked at this point. You can see his gas tank is depleted. Dober fires a huge 1-2 then that really rocks him, and then a sneaky tight knee up the middle that you can't even really see that drops McKinney instantly. Dober's superior finishing instincts kick in. He lands massive shots that slice through the guard of McKinney, and McKinney just turtles up there and takes it, and Dober gets the finish by brutal ground and pound. Very, very similar to McKinney versus Duncan if you've seen that fight. I can't believe how identical that collapse was from McKinney. Very similar fight. Watch those two side by side, frame by frame, and there's not a whole lot of difference, to be honest. Anyway, Drew Dober gets the win by TKO for an insane comeback and a crazy one-round war of the ages. Sick fight, this one. This is why we love Terence McKinney. Even though he sucks, he's just hectic and schizo, and he's always in an entertaining fight. This fight went for 197 seconds, all of about 3 minutes and a bit. 53 significant strikes landed. That is huge. Most from McKinney, and they were a lot of impactful ones too, head kicks and knees and big ground and pound shots. 2 knockdowns, 2 takedowns. We get a VDI of 0.269, a CBF Factor of 6. That's probably a little bit under for what this one deserves, but it probably wouldn't have changed the ranking. It ends up with a BDI of 1.614. T-Rex versus the Giga Chad Dober. All-time hectic one-round war. All right, I had to have a drink before this one because this one was crazy, and I'm going to have to do my best here to narrate this one. At number 4, it is Travis Brown versus Andre Arlovski. big heavyweights from back in the day. At the start of the fight, the commentators are going, these guys are friends, they're brothers. And you're thinking, oh, righto, like, here we go. This is going to be a soft cock fight. It was not what we got. We had a bit of nothing early, a few leg kicks from Andrei Arlovski and some body work from Travis Browne. About 40 seconds in, things really kicked off. Travis Browne attacks with an overhand and overextends. And then Andrei Arlovski rocks him with a tight uppercut that stumbles Travis Browne back. Arlovski goes on the attack, the pit bull, and rocks him up against the cage. Arlovski works him, bro. Head, body, knees up the middle. Browne gets his distance, resets, and then Arlovski blitzes in again and tags him with a straight shot. Non-stop body shots and dirty boxing from both guys, mostly Arlovski. Back at range for a little bit. Travis Browne lands a big overhand right that was kind of partially blocked from Arlovski. A step-in left hook as well that tags Arlovski. Then Travis Browne backs him up and he goes for it. He whiffs a big left hand and Arlovski makes him pay with like a back fist or something. It was a weird exchange, and then a big shot clips Travis Browne's chin, a couple more follow-up shots, and they sit him down to a knee momentarily. And then we get a bit more just kind of jogging around the cage at range while these boys get their wits back about them, and they suck in a bit of oxygen as well. Then Travis Browne does recover a little bit, and they exchange a few more shots. Honestly, this fight could have and should have been higher on the list if it wasn't for these like two sections where they're just heavy breathing at each other and fainting, because it kind of whacks out the VDI a little bit. But if you ignore those two, this one would probably be number one. Anyway, Andrei Arlovski blitzes in again and just barely misses a whole bunch of shots. Then we get one of the most insane exchanges of the fight. They clash and throw simultaneously. Both miss, but then Andrei Arlovski fires in like a little cheeky back fist that lands and follows it up with a left hook. It was kind of like back fist, left hook combo. So fast. Insane combo. Travis Browne hits the deck from that. Then Arlovski jumps on him and lands vicious ground and pound, hammer fists. Somehow Browne gets back to his feet, but he's on wobbly legs and Arlovski is smelling blood like a shark in the water. Somehow, Travis Browne throws a last little Hail Mary that clips Arlovski, but Arlovski's chin is insane. He just runs on pure adrenaline in this fight. Arlovski goes for the kill shot. Travis Browne sneaks in one last good one before he's done. Just when we thought he was done, sits down Arlovski out of nowhere. Fucking mental war, this one. It was insane. Anyways, Arlovski somehow dodges a few sloppy shots from Browne because Browne was totally gassed. He swivels back around to his feet and lands a knee and a straight right. And then at this point, Travis Browne is just completely done. He looks up at the clock thinking that's going to save him, then gets jabbed, smacked up a few times for good luck, elbowed. Then they reset one last time and Arlovski whips in with an overhand, and then it's time for the kill shot. Uppercut, bang, straight right. Boom! At last, Mark Smith has seen enough and calls it a standing KO and the end of a fucking insane and beautiful bit of violence between these fellas. Arlovski gets it done in brutal fashion. This, an all-time one-rounder. Never forget these fellas who paved the way for what was to come in the UFC. The stats don't do this one justice whatsoever. Like, honestly, I gave this a CBF Factor of 10 just to try and bump it up the list as hard as I could. Unfortunately, the mathematics of this little equation that I've created here meant that it had a pretty low VDI. I should have gave it a CBF of about 15 to pump it up. But anyway, I gave it a 10 out of 10. It's a 281 second fight, 66 significant strikes, which seems a little bit low. Maybe whoever does the stats in the fight underrated these guys a bit. It is an older fight, so they weren't as accurate back in the day. 2 knockdowns, so it gets a VDI of 0.235 and a CBF of 10 for an overall BDI score of 2.350. This one will live on in my head rent-free forever. Respect, fellas. All right, coming in at number 3, we've got a bit of a sleeper this one. This is Amanda Nunes versus Chris Cyborg. Short fight, but absolutely psychotic, this one. It was really entertaining to watch, and I got really hyped watching this one. So Nunes versus Cyborg. The fight starts, and these two psychos legit just size each other up for about half the fight, and that's not them doing nothing for ages. That is just half of this fight was nothing, and then the other half was just pure chaos. They didn't even throw a strike for the first half of the fight. It was just like the calm before the storm. Anyways, then what you're all here for, the chaos begins. They trade a couple of good shots and a few go close, not quite landing just yet. A big leg kick lands for Amanda Nunes, followed by a big right hand immediately after. Then Cyborg, the schizo, just fires back and lands probably her best shot of the fight. pushes forward with a combo that backs Nunes up. She's throwing her guts out. Then with her back against the cage, because Amanda was getting backed up, trying to dodge and weave from Cyborg, just going in full schizo mode at her. She gets backed up to the cage, and then the Lioness just pounces and boom, a 1-2 that snaps Cyborg's head back and sits her down to a knee the first time. Anyway, Cyborg, tough as, wrestles back up and starts firing up. And then, looking like Vanderlei Silva in a dress and heels, rushes forward, just back into the fire. Gotta respect her courage. Gets tagged and sat down again immediately by Amanda Nunes. Cyborg again pops back up like a zombie, and then Amanda wings a huge haymaker, and Cyborg just eats it and face plants down into the canvas. Rinse and repeat after that. Cyborg pops up again, and Amanda just plays fucking whack-a-mole with her and floors her one more time. At this point, Cyborg has no idea where she is. Goddard's in there taking a good close look. Somehow Cyborg gets up one last time for one last ass whooping, looking like a stunned mullet, rocked all over the place, and then Amanda just lands a pinpoint execution shot, and Cyborg descends into darkness. Nunes smashes her, TKOs her, retains the belt, and then she goes and shares a special moment with Dana and Stu. And so for this one, it's pretty high up the list, but for good reason, guys. I reckon this one's a pretty epic fight, and because it's so short, it gets a very high VDI. So we got a 51-second fight here, 16 significant strikes, which is not a lot, 2 knockdowns, so it gets a high chaos factor of 8 out of 10. And look, just the fact that it's such a short fight means that it gets a VDI of 0.314 for an overall BDI score of 2.512. Fucking insane stuff, and probably the most chaotic, sick, schizo chicks fight of all time. Love this shit. All right, coming in at number 2 is another really recent one. It was actually from last weekend's card. And yeah, spoiler alert, there's a couple still coming from last weekend's card. If you come this far, you'll know what you're here for anyway. So number 2, all based on the maths of this equation, is Terrence McKinney versus Chris Duncan. These absolute units. Look, everyone knew this was going to be fireworks, but we still underestimated this fight. So these fellas, they get in there. They got ultimate respect for each other, but they knew they were about to go into the fire. Anyway, they meet in the middle, as is tradition. A few seconds of hand fighting is about as calm as this one gets. And then McKinney leads in with a jab that partially lands, stalks in. Duncan I felt like he was half asleep at the start of this fight, just backing up around the cage, waiting to see what would happen. Maybe he had a bunch of respect for McKinney's, early game, but he might have had a little bit too much respect for McKinney early, because McKinney attacked with a flying knee that got his attention and stumbled him. McKinney chucks out a head kick that gets a bit of a reaction from Duncan. Then he fires in a 7-piece combo that completely rattles Chris Duncan, but he stays in there and steps back into the fire and trades back with McKinney. And then McKinney lands a sneaky flush uppercut, a few more shots and some flurries. Hard to really keep track of what landed, but McKinney was going crazy trying to get the finish, like he does in every fight. Duncan was looking rocked and shocked and shell-shocked, and McKinney's just going after him, attacking, sneaks in a nasty body knee at one point as well. Another big 1-2 has Duncan wobbled, and he shoots in to get a bit of respite. He has a bit of temporary reprieve because he does get the takedown and has a bit of cage control. And then McKinney straight back up, landing freaky little elbows and knees from in tight in the clinch, just unleashing on Duncan, trying to just hurt him in every which way he possibly could. Eventually, Duncan shucks him off out of the clinch and suddenly lands a big jab that actually rattles McKinney a bit and gets his respect. And then there's a few more I don't even know how to describe the next part of the fight, just wild, chaotic exchanges. Both guys going tit for tat. A big knee lands from Terrence McKinney. Duncan lands a nice body kick at one point as well. Then we got this really cool looking simultaneous knee and jab where Duncan throws a jab and as McKinney's throwing a knee. The screenshot I got here looks pretty cool. And then a few more just wild exchanges. That's kind of what I was writing in the notes for this fight. Just wild exchanges. Some shit's landing. I don't know what it is, but mostly McKinney. Plenty of good shots were getting landed by both of these warriors, but don't get me wrong, they were smacking each other up. And the commentators in the crowd were going psycho. And then right at the end, Duncan out of nowhere just lands a short, tight elbow to McKinney's chin, chin, and down goes Terrence McKinney. And from there, basically the fight is over. But for some reason, the ref just let it keep going for a bit. McKinney was quit on the deck, busted up against the cage, and Duncan's on top of him, just throwing mad ground and pound. But it was kind of soft shots, to be honest, because he was so rocked and gassed and just he didn't have it really in him to put McKinney away. But McKinney was just laying there going, please finish me, or please ref jump in. But Duncan was just too dumb, too hurt, too gassed. And then eventually, after about bloody another 30 seconds to a minute of just little rubber ducky punches, the refs kind of looking at him going, this is not enough to stop the fight, but McKinney's quitting. Thankfully, Chris Duncan, his saner heads prevail and his brain cells wake up and he becomes ungassed, and he sees McKinney just sticking out his T-Rex neck out there, and he grabs hold of it and rolls him over into a DAS or an anaconda or something, and the fight gets finished. So I feel like if Duncan had poured it on him a bit harder when he first went down, or just went for the submission 20 or 30 seconds earlier, this one might have even ended up at number one, because the index would have just gone up and up and the multiplier would have gone crazy. But eventually we do get a 150-second fight, 69 significant strikes, 1 knockdown, 1 takedown, and a successful submission attempt at the end as well. So the violence density index is very, very high at 0.460. I gave it a CBF of 7. Look, it could have been a bit higher as well. It probably wouldn't have changed this one's ranking. So this one goes in at number 2 with a BDI of 3.220. The second most hectic one-round war of all time, in my opinion, of the ones that I looked at. So pretty surprising, this one, when the math came out of it. But hey, you can't argue with math and logic, can you? And Punch-On's math and logic is 100% correct. You guys all know that. And finally, the one you've all been waiting for, the one that caused me to make this video, the one that gave me this idea, and in my opinion, the most hectic, chaotic, wild, entertaining, insane one-round war I've ever seen in the UFC. And look, maybe not as much volume, maybe not as many different moments, maybe not as much crazy damage and blood and that type of thing, but in terms of the density and the packed in condensement of the violence and the craziness of this fight, nothing beats it. This was honestly the most pure, chaotic minute of fighting, of violence I have ever seen. And look, recency bias aside, I think the numbers tell the story when you realise the score that this one gets. Of course, I'm talking about Iwo versus Ebo. Future Hall of Fame fight, one that will go down in UFC fans' memory forever. Iwo Baranowski versus Ebo Aslan. So we get a nice, relaxing, calm start to this one. Ebo starts off by landing a leg kick. Then Iwo just goes for a nice, friendly takedown. Like, come on, bro, we're going to have a little snuggle fest here. But Ebo's like, nah, man, we're here to bang. And anyway, after that, I can't even really tell what caused the first knockdown here. It was either a knee or just a good tight shot from the clinch from Iwo, but it sits Ebo down immediately. Then he gets back up and we get a massive shot from Ebo that rattles Iwo and he face plants. And then he wakes back up and just stands back up again like nothing ever happened. Then Ebo is on him, swarming him. Sorry, I'm trying to keep track of who's Ebo and who's Iwo here. Ebo swarms him, shot after shot, pounding him out. Some are getting through, he's just going boods, tacking him up against the cage like RoboCop style. But Ebo just keeps going and leaves his chin exposed. He just throws for a bit too long, and Iwo takes advantage, flukes a big counter, and then drops Ebo again and sits him down. Down he goes into the fetal position, and Iwo just starts dropping bombs on him. Look, Ebo manages to resurrect himself again and wrestles back up onto a single leg. All the while, he's just eating elbows and punches from Iwo. And then, look, this next bit, it just happened so fast, but the violence density was absolutely unreal. I can't even really do it justice. Go and watch this insane fight if you haven't already. Anyway, the next part. Iwo spins Ebo's jaw around with the right hand, then Ebo returns and lands an absolute bouquet, like a banquet of uppercuts and overhands. Just smash. Ewo's rocked all over the place. Both guys are, to be honest. We get a knee up the middle from Ebo Aslan. And then Ebo just has one last crack. Look, he's feeling himself. He's in the zone. He feels like he's on top. He charges in like a bull with his hands down, his chin up, and he backs Iwo up to the cage. And then neck minute, Iwo just lands the final devastating right hand that chisels Ebo Aslan's chin and has him sit down on the canvas, stargazing up at the ceiling. And then Iwo just follows up with a devastating, bulk, bit of ground and pound, and Ebo goes to sleep and he's out TKO and the ref finally jumps in. So honestly, a crazy end to one of probably the single most chaotic, crazy minute of fighting in UFC history, in my opinion. This all went down in about 90 seconds, this fight. But there was only really about a minute of actual fighting that was worth looking at. So you can literally skip the first 30 seconds and then enjoy the fucking 1 minute of doom from these blokes. So 90-second fight, 89 seconds, 52 significant strikes. That's more than some blokes have over the course of 3 rounds. 3 knockdowns and maybe even a 4th at some point. We got a VDI, blew all the rest out of the water of 0.584 and a CBF factor of, course, 10. I was losing my shit when this fight was on, going crazy, screaming, jumping up out of the couch, and we get a massive BDI score of 5.840. And in my opinion, Ewo versus Ebo, chuck it in the Hall of Fame right now. One of the most psycho, schizo, entertaining, wild-ass bits of pure art and violence we've ever seen in the octagon. So Ebo, fucking get him on the White House card, headline that shit, main event, run it back. I am keen. I'll watch this fight 1,000 times over. Respect to these fucking legends. That's it for the list, boys. I've got a couple of honourable mentions to throw out here at the end. We had, Matt Hughes versus Frank Trigg 2. That one deserved to be on the list, and I was trying to find a way to get it on there, but I couldn't find the stats properly, and the stats that I did find back in the day were not accurate whatsoever. This was a crazy fight as well, but, it's just a bit too old for me to really include in this list. I'm not that old to remember this fight. I didn't watch this one live. So even though probably a lot of people are going to be thinking of this one, it doesn't do a lot for me. But it is one of the OG one-round wars. And, I just couldn't be counting the strikes up, to be honest. A few other honourable mentions. Frank Mir versus Nogueira, where he broke his arm. Lesnar versus Cain Velasquez. That was like the olden day equivalent of RoboCop versus Marquez, just an ass whooping from Cain. Robbie Lawler versus Ben Askren was pretty crazy. It was a contender, but just that the ending was a bit weak where Robbie he wasn't out, but they called it off by a submission. Glover Teixeira versus Carl Roberson was pretty sick. Tyron Woodley versus Vicente Luque, that was pretty sick as well. Johnny Walker versus Ryan Spann, and Tim Means versus Nico Price. All of these ones could have made the list at one point. Probably some of these would have had a better BDI than Pat Barry versus Czech Congo, but I wasn't leaving that one off the list, boys. So go watch a few of them fights if you haven't as well. And yeah, that was a good bunch of honourable mentions there. I could have made a top 20 here, but couldn't be fucked. CBF. That'll do it, boys. I hope you enjoyed this video. This one took a fair while to make. It was pretty hard. Lots of screenshots and shit to do. So if you enjoyed it, make sure you hit like on the video. Subscribe to Punch-Ons. Follow me on Instagram at Punch-Ons-MMA. But most importantly, fucking subscribe. We're almost at 100, boys. I want to get there ASAP. So jump down there, do it right now. I really would appreciate it. Thank you, fucking legends, for watching. I'll see you blokes on the next one. Punch on.